Roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Present.
Present. Counsel Chakutis?
Present.
Present. Counsel Calucci?
Present.
Present. Counsel Field?
Present.
Present. Counsel Hogan?
Present.
Present. Counsel LaPierre?
Present.
Present. Counsel Lozey?
Present.
Present. Counsel Net?
Present.
Present. Counsel Staben? Absent. Counsel Walsh? Absent. Counsel Seer?
Present. All rise for a moment of silence.
President, if we can remember the family of Sue Pelusi Sullivan.
Mr. President, also the families of Randy Rendazzo and our friends in Peabody, Superintendent Kara Murtar and Vice Principal Judith Maniatis and their families.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Accept the minutes from the November 26th meeting.
Yes, sir. So moved.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Before we go any further, I just want to point out that Council Walsh is not with us tonight. He had a death in his family. Our condolences to his family. And also, Councilor Staben is not with us. He's having beers with Santa Claus in a bar in Houston. So he couldn't get a plane to come back today. Communications.
We have two communications from His Honor the Mayor. Dear Councilors, I am hereby appointing Mr. Peter Cipriano, 18 Merrill Ave, to serve on the Citizens Advisory Board. Mr. Cipriano's term is effective immediately. Sincerely, Mayor Thomas M. McGee. Dear Councilors, I am hereby appointing Mr. Richard Parker as the chairperson of the Grand Army of the Republic Trustees, effective November 22nd, 2019. If you have any questions or need any additional information, please do not hesitate to contact my office. Sincerely, Mayor Thomas M. McGee.
Approve.
Motion made,
Second.
seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All set. Public hearings.
First public hearing is to deem 16-18 St. Clair Street a nuisance property due to noise, early morning excessive school bus beeping, and repeated neighborhood complaints.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of considering this a nuisance property? Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come to the podium, state your name and your address.
My name is Cheryl Gay. I live at 15 St. Clair. I spoke at the last meeting about 16 to 18 St. Clair, so you all know my feelings about it. My neighbors are here today to support you in this endeavor too, so I just wanted to speak in favor of it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? You did say, Cheryl, that your neighbors were here. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, and just show your hands so that they can, okay. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, that part of the hearing is closed. Council Barton, can you please?
Councilor Seer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I am the ward counselor over there. This property has been a nuisance. I know that the people that are leasing the building are saying their leases are up at the end of December. I did talk with the landlord. He said he was going to try to clean it up, but I do want to put a demo water on the property. But I want them to come back and suspend the demo water for 120 days. I want the landlord to come back in 60 days with the neighbors to see if there's any change. If there isn't, then we'll proceed with the demo water. But I want them to have to come back at least twice over the next 120 days. So I make that in the form of a motion.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Staben absent, Counsel Walsh absent, Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes.
Next public hearing.
We have the petitioner Sarah Marshall, owner of Lucille Wine LLC, for a package store license for the sale of beer and wine at 776 Washington Street.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
John Myhouse, 7 Franklin Street in Lynn, representing Sarah Marshall. Petition is before you for a beer and wine package store license down at that location. I've spoken to the ward councilor, she's in favor of it. As you know, the EDIC has invested in it. Special legislation has gone forward. The legislation is so as to allow the petition. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else? Seeing none, that part of the hearing is closed. Anyone in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, that part of the hearing is closed. What is the wish of the council? Councilor Jacutis.
Motion to approve.
Motion made, seconded, discussion, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Calucci?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Staben absent, Counsel Walsh absent, Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes. Next public hearing is a proposed ordinance amending the City of Lynn zone ordinance and the City of Lynn zone map in the W3 and W4 districts.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, that part of the hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Come to the podium, state your name, please.
Can I just ask, should I address both? I think there's 2 zoning ordinances, correct?
There's two different public hearings.
Okay.
This is in regards to area W3 and W4.
All right. I think this probably applies to both.
Yes, it was taken.
Isaac Hodes from Lynn. I guess I wanted to start by saying I'm not here to say I don't want to see development on the waterfront, and I don't want to be misconstrued that way. I think as a resident of Lynn for almost my whole life, I absolutely want to see development that benefits the whole city. To me, the question is not, will there be development? I have confidence in Lynn. I know that there's not a lot of comparable land on the waterfront around this area. The question is, what is waterfront development going to look like? And the fear that I have is if we continue on the path we're on right now, it's not going to be the kind of development that reflects the best of what Lynn is supposed to be about. It's going to be segregated by race and by class. It's going to be built using irresponsible contractors who endanger their workers, who don't pay a living wage, who don't pay benefits. And we've seen the really dire results of that already on Monroe Street, with workers almost killed, one person in particular. We're going to see development that includes no affordable housing at all. We've seen that pattern already. Down the line, we see a literal gated community is what's planned at the Gearworks site. We're going to see what amounts to a separate enclave that's not really connected with the rest of the city that I know and love. It's going to be a residential place for people with higher incomes from elsewhere, without necessarily ties to the city, who have their own little area. That's the fear. And I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not looking for excuses to be a naysayer. And if you look at what's happened in the Boston waterfront, in the Seaport district, that's exactly what it looks like right now. They had an opportunity, and it's ended up being an incredibly segregated area. It's a little enclave. It's not benefited the whole city. It's not benefited the working class, lower income people in Boston. And what we set in motion right now, and what everyone in this council has a lot of power over. This is going to last for generations. You know, this isn't the next 5 years. This is going to set the template and really determine what that whole area of the city is going to look like for generations. And one of the specific concerns with these changes is that it gives away some of the leverage that you all have as representatives of the people of Lynn to negotiate, to make sure that developers coming in make their money, but the people of Lynn, broadly speaking, get public benefits in return. And there's going to come a conversation at some point when a new development's coming in and it's going to be millions and millions of dollars, and someone on the council is going to ask, maybe the law department or another expert, well, what can we do to get at least a little bit of affordable housing in there? Or what can we do to make sure that they use responsible contractors? What can we do to make sure there's some other public benefit? And if we keep changing the zoning to accommodate developers every time they want something, the answer is going to be, well, they can do that by right. You know, they can build those 8 stories by right, so you really don't have much leverage. And I'm asking today that you don't give away some of the leverage that we do have to shape development. And I know that, you know, the people up here, none of you would vote for an ordinance that, you know, clearly said, look, we want to set up the waterfront as a new part of Lynn that's going to be segregated by race, that's going to be segregated by class, that's not going to include the working class people who are the majority in Lynn. No one would vote for that. But we keep going in this direction, that's what we're going to get. None of you would vote for something that says, let's give away millions of dollars, let's increase the wealth inequality we have in this country. But again, you know, you're giving away the 3 floors by increasing from 5 to 8 the maximum height, and I think that's the Waterfront 2 district. That's one of many, many changes thrown together in this jumble of amendments. You know, that's what it amounts to, is giving away a whole bunch of money without getting any public benefit in return to people who are already millionaires. I think on top of that, it's just bad practice. There was a vision for the waterfront, and I may not have agreed with every piece of it. I may not have agreed with the whole process, but there was a sort of blueprint that was created. The pictures were up there about what this might look like. There were shops, there was commerce, there was people, there was connections with the rest of the city. And it looks like little by little, many of these changes are sort of undermining that. We're getting rid of some of the requirements around retail space on the first floors. You know, I don't know whether that was the best requirement or not, but there was a reason it was there. It was part of a vision, and we're, you know, gradually whittling away at that. The developers, their job is to figure out how are they making money for themselves, the people in their company. They're thinking short, medium term. I hope that you all are thinking long term, that this is about defending the public interest and really shaping what is this whole neighborhood going to look like. And I'm concerned it's, you know, we're bending to the will of each individual developer without an eye on the long-term prize. And of course, you know, developers are going to tell you, look, we'd love to come to Lynn, we'd love to invest in your city, we're doing you a big favor by investing this money. They're going to make a lot off of it. Of course they're going to tell you, we can't do it without you making X, Y, or Z change. They're negotiating, and we need you as our representatives, we're not in those rooms, to negotiate on our behalf. And what I think a number of these changes amount to is giving away the tools that would let you be strong negotiators. You know, again, with the increase in the height and a number of the other changes, shifting one parcel from one zone to another, you know, these are things that are really seem to be accommodating, whether it's specific development, specific type of development. We need you to not give that away. We need you to negotiate over that for us. I heard in the planning committee earlier, there was a comment made by someone about these changes freeing things up so we can let the market determine what will happen in these buildings and in this neighborhood. You know, some people on the council, maybe no one here, there may be a few people who really believe in that idea of trickle-down economics, of Reaganomics. I don't think most of you do. But that's what that amounts to, is ceding our authority as a public to determine in broad outline what this is going to look like to developers who are trying to maximize their profit. And I hope that we don't go that route. I hope that there's a chance to table this. I think both of these ordinances should be tabled to give them some real consideration. There's a lot in there, and it's not clear to me at all whether specific developers were asking for some of this, where all of this came from. There were these long public processes that you'll hear. I don't remember these types of changes in any of the recent meetings in the city summit being discussed. And I hope that we can table these and talk about putting together a package that includes changes that make sense, that are in line with the vision for the long term of the waterfront, that really integrates it with the rest of the city, and that also has some provisions for inclusionary policies that make sure there is some affordable housing along with the market rate housing. And I think that's possible. And I think if Lynn wants to live up to the idea of being the city of firsts, we need to take control of this process. The development's coming. There's not too many other options. But if we want to make it equitable development that really reflects what this city should be about, we got to take control of it and stop bending to the will every time a developer snaps their fingers and we jump. I guess the last comment I made is there were a few councilors prior to the election who said they couldn't comment or take a position on inclusionary zoning, on policies around inclusionary housing and development, because they wanted to wait and see the results of the housing study that's being done. And we could debate that, whether that's a reason to hold off or not, but I think it's a reasonable debate we could have. But I'm assuming anyone who took that position would not go ahead and pass this, in some cases, pretty far-reaching set of changes to zoning, which clearly has a relationship and an impact to the overall housing picture in Lynn before that study comes out. So I hope you'll table it. I hope there can be a real deliberation and a more open process about where these changes are coming from, exactly what they mean. And there's a lot in here. And the one I would point to in specific is the shift in the height limit from 5 to 8 stories. That's the kind of thing where in many cities, an individual project wants to come in and exceed that height limit, which is there for a reason. Right? It wasn't just randomly picked out of the air that the limit was 5 stories. There was a decision made that the balance of the public good about, preserving access, making sure the waterfront isn't kind of walled off, people's views, all those things. How does that balance with the need for economic development? And that was the balance that was struck. To all of a sudden throw that out the window and say, well, we're going to do 8 stories because we heard there's a developer who's coming in who wants that. That's not how it should work. It should be a negotiation. If they want that millions and millions and millions of dollars of additional profit they're going to make off those stories, what's the public benefit in return? Where's the balance? And by just putting that into zoning and eliminating that chance to negotiate, we're giving away what should be a chance for us to gain some public good and have some control over this process. So I hope you'll table this, as well as the other zoning amendment, so that we can talk about development, which I fully support, but development that means inclusion, that means some affordable housing for the people of Lynn, that connects this neighborhood with the rest of the city, and that is built in a way that's compatible with Lynn's longstanding history as a labor town. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I just want to say that, and I should have said it before Isaac got up, he got a little bit of extra time. Everybody will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, either in favor or in opposition during a public hearing. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, what's the wish of the council?
You got someone.
Please state your name and your address.
Okay, my name is Janusha Jasufi, and I am at 54 Western Ave, Lynn, Massachusetts. I just wanted to actually go off Isaac's point about the seaport. There's an interesting article on the Boston Globe, and it's titled, "The City Had a Rare Opportunity to Build a New Neighborhood for All Bostonians. Instead, it built the seaport." Imagine a fresh start, a chance for Boston to build a new urban neighborhood of the future, untouched by the bigotry of the past. Start with a swath of nearly 1,000 acres where rotting railroad piers and asphalt parking lots had lain fallow for generations. Invest more than $18 billion in public money to create some of America's most valuable property. Envision a seaside of neighborhood that city planners said would be for all Bostonians. And what happened? One of the city's whitest neighborhoods was born. The Spotlight team scrutinized the seaport in its examination of whether Boston still deserves its reputation as an inhospitable place for blacks, despite the vision decades ago by the city's top development officials as a place for all Bostonians to reconnect with the waterfront. The seaport has become like an exclusive club created, frequented and populated almost exclusively by the white and the wealthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else? State your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Duncan. I am a resident of 67 Adams Street here in Lynn, and a member of Lynn United for Change. So I attended some of the meetings over the last year or two around the planned developments on the waterfront, and there were a lot of discussions around inclusion and affordable housing and things like that. So I just wanted to also reiterate what Isaac was saying, and think that it's really important that there is a transparent process for any kinds of recommendations and changes around these kind of things with zoning. And there were a couple of them of particular concern, because even though people may talk about things being inclusive and transparent, sometimes in reality it doesn't work out that way. Like, for example, if there's no retail space available, in effect, that kind of keeps everyone out who doesn't necessarily live in the location. So again, just reiterating as a resident of Lynn and hoping that the city councilors will, have a transparent process and table this so that, things are done in a deliberate way, because when they're not, bad things happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else, please come to the podium and state your name and your address.
My name is Kathleen Santora. I live at 63 Sutcliffe Road in Lynn. Lived here since 1986. I have to say I'm a little bit discouraged sitting here and listening to people trying to make a point and having people turn their backs to them as they're making their point. The residents of the city have a right to stand before the council and make their feelings known and be respected and listened to. The city council...
Are you speaking in opposition?
I'm speaking
Because you're not going to reprimand the council during a public hearing on a matter. So if you're here to speak in opposition as to what the public hearing is, continue.
I would
If
like
not,
to see
please sit
the
down.
council take this seriously and consider the residents of the city.
We absolutely do.
This process seems to be getting mangled, changes being made without people having an opportunity to see what's really happening. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, that part of the hearing is closed. What is the wish of the council? Councilor Lewis.
Mr. President, thank you. I just want to make a few remarks, what we heard tonight. I don't agree with Mr. Hodes on a lot of points. He mentions that by passing this zoning, we would be giving away money. And in fact, I think what he refers to is we would be giving away an opportunity for linkage, so to speak. And we already know there are certain types of linkage that are blatantly illegal. But, without getting into the inclusionary zoning or any of that, this particular development in the city is unique. It's our waterfront, it's the jewel of Lynn, and this isn't a case of us losing our vision. It's by thinking big. Instead of 5 stories, we go to 8 stories. There was opposition. I attended all of these hearings going back almost 15 years ago when we were moving the electrical lines. What we heard then, there was some opposition regarding the height. And I don't think that that was the sticking point. Today, we're revisiting this, and this will bring, we're not talking about trickle-down economics. We're talking about housing here. That's a totally different thing. I know neighbors that live in my community that would love to sell their home. Their children are older. They would love to purchase a condo on the beach. And that gives opportunity to more residents in the city to live in our gem of our part of our city. So that would open up housing for the houses they sell for families to come into Lynn, that they can raise families like they did and like I did and like many of you have. So that really is an opportunity for more people by developing our waterfront. As far as the other issues that they brought up, you know, they're valid, and we can look at that in other areas, but this particular area, I think I stand with our EDIC and all the work that we've done up to this point, with all the public hearings we've held, and it just, I don't think this is something we should be tabling. Although this particular, I did attend the planning board, and I know that this particular portion was tabled, and I think that we could move to table this.
Correct. Legally, you must table this for 60 days until the planning board makes a recommendation on this particular ordinance. They made a recommendation on the public hearing coming up.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Lamanna. So, you know, I just wanted to throw that out, and
Are
it's
you
not
making a
like...
motion to table, Counselor?
Yeah, and just one last point is, we're not just deciding this on a whim, as we heard tonight. This is something that's been going on for several years, and many of you have attended many of these public hearings. And I think this is a lot of good work that we've come to this point. But in any event, I do make a motion to table this one.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, non-debatable, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Staben absent. Counsel Walsh absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes. Before we go any further, I just want to explain to the people in the audience that when the council there's a lot of stuff going on up here, and there are attorneys that are here that have to come up and speak to us. There are things going on here that councilors have to discuss. It is not to be disrespectful. We do this all the time. We can hear what's being said at the podium. I just want to clarify that we are not being disrespectful to anyone, whether they are in opposition of something or in favor of it. Next public hearing.
Next public hearing is a proposed ordinance amending the City of Lynn zone ordinance and the City of Lynn zone map relating to the W1, W1A, W2, W3, W4, WS, and SHCO districts.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Regarding the proposed zoning changes on our waterfront district, it's common practice for municipalities to revisit and update master plans, and we've been over this a number of times over the last 10 or 15 years to better reflect the current state of our city and what more broadly financial and economic opportunities that sit in certain areas in our city and as a city of a whole. So over the last year, with the help of EDIC, our partners at the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and consultants at UTIL, Brown, Richardson, and Rowe, We conducted a public process with many public meetings and opportunities for input on a revised waterfront master plan, municipal harbor plan, and a waterfront open space plan, which this body accepted a few months ago, and I was in front of you in support of those master plans several months ago. The zoning changes before you tonight will allow for implementation of those plans and recommendations, which I support. And I really think after this year-long process, the public piece of it, that it's important we move forward and accept these zoning changes that are a key piece to the master plans that you had accepted several months ago. But I also want to make a point that as we move forward on this, that we are also in the process of working on a housing production plan in the community. And that process was started over the last several weeks. It was part of discussion at the summit that was held, and the opportunity for the community and for all of us to be part of an ongoing, probably close to a year-long process, public process involving the community to really take a deeper look at the housing production plan, the needs of the community, and the opportunities for us to work together to find other options for us to move forward on other zoning opportunities, which this council then can actually take action on, is something that will be an important piece of this housing production plan that will allow us to address the larger issues that are facing the community. So as we move forward on the waterfront master plan, again, has been part of a long public process, there is an ongoing discussion about the direction of the community and how we can together can ensure that we make the right decisions and continue to make zoning changes and proposals that work for the whole community. So, again, I support this process. I support the changes that are being made tonight, and I know that the process related to the housing production plan is an important piece of us as we continue to look at our whole community and make sure that we have the kind of development and the kind of investment that happens and works for all of us. So that is an ongoing process, and again, that will be something that we will be back in front of this council to again make proposals based on the recommendations that come again from a full public process from the community, and I look forward to being a part of it, and I'm sure that all of the members of the council and members of the community will be part of that. And I just want to make one final point that I think is very important through this whole master plan process, and I think is unique, a unique piece of it, and something that I'm very excited about, and it really does impact not only the development that's going to happen, but the opportunity for our community to really enjoy a waterfront that's been really blocked off for the last 50 years or longer, and that's the open space master plan. That's going to include 60 acres of open space with waterfront parks, boardwalks, access to the community. We're in the process of actually creating a study for the Blossom Street extension to look at how we can make an interchange there would then start to knit back into the community, and I've advocated, and many of you have heard this, in terms of the connections between the waterfront across the Linway, which is really a barrier, and how do we start to break down that barrier and really interconnect our community so that we can share in the kind of opportunity on the waterfront, particularly with that open space plan. I think that piece of it is an exciting portion of what we're doing, and I think if you look at what's going on, whether it be in the region or on the East Coast, you're not going to see many places that have that kind of commitment to open space for our community. So as we look at the master plan, as we look at the opportunity for developments, as you make a decision tonight on supporting these zoning changes after the process, I do think that piece, as well as the harbor plan, are really going to give us other opportunities to create those connections for our community that have been lacking for really my lifetime and all of our lifetimes in terms of a beautiful resource for our community. So this is a part of the process. The process will continue as we look towards the kind of decision we need to make together to ensure that we move the city in the direction that I know we all want to do together. So again, I support this process. I thank you for your time listening to me, and look forward to working with all of you as we move forward on issues of importance in the city. Again, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Let's come to the podium. Please don't forget, 5 minutes.
Thank you. I can probably do it in 1 minute. Mr. President, Jim Cowdell, I'm the Executive Director of EDIC, which is the agency responsible for economic development for the city of Lynn. I just wanted to basically say to the council, thank you. When EDIC hired UTIL, and as you know, we do not have a planning department, we went out, we hired a team of urban planners, highly recommended. And I want to thank the council because we had 9 or 10 public meetings, and I think universally, the city council participated in that. And when I spoke to the mayor over a year ago and to the council president over a year ago about the process, both the city council president and the mayor said, make it inclusive, make sure that every voice is heard. Throughout those 9 or 10 public hearings, the business community was heard, the elected officials, the state delegation, the city council, the mayor, all had a chance to participate, and most importantly, the residents all had a chance to voice their opinion. So I wanted to come before the council. You have consistently supported the first original plan that was passed, and now these revisions. And I think at the end of the day, we will be very proud with the development that will occur. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, that part of the hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? You have 5 minutes, Isaac.
I'll be quicker this time. Sorry, I didn't realize I had a time limit last time. I just want to address a few of the comments that were made. In terms of, whether the city has any legal recourse to shape development more than it has been. Linkage requires home rule. We know that. That's a tough process. We think it's worth fighting. But inclusionary zoning is legal. We do not need home rule for that. Community benefit agreements are completely legal. We don't need any intervention from the state. And those are, putting conditions in exchange for increased height or density are things the city can do. So when I talk about having leverage, that's what I mean, is when you have leverage, you have the ability to help push for those kind of things. I've heard about the hearings going back and the people having a chance to voice their opinions. To be honest, it seems like there were a lot of hearings and we had a chance to voice our opinions and then have them pretty much disregarded. There are plenty of countries that have elections every year, but they're still dictatorships. I appreciate the mayor's comment about interconnecting this part of the waterfront with the rest of the city, and I think that's absolutely crucial, but I think the reality is if we keep going on the path we're going and don't seriously intervene, that's not what's going to happen. We're going to end up with this enclave that just, for practical purposes, is not welcoming to the rest of the city. If you look at what the developers are saying when they're pitching these projects, they're explicitly saying these projects are for people from outside of Lynn with income. They're not for people. I like the vision that Councilor Lozey mentioned about, people from other parts of the city maybe have more house than they need moving here. But to make that happen, again, we need guidelines and we need the leverage to make these developers do things that we want that are, a good balance between what they need and what's needed here. So again, I'd encourage everyone to consider tabling this. And, in particular, I'm wondering, I didn't hear anything in the hearings I was at or the discussions I was at about, increasing the height limit in the WF2 district from 5 to 8 stories. Why don't we leave it at 5 stories? If some amazing project comes forward that's 6 stories, 7 stories, and it wants to, get a variance, and we can negotiate whether there's public benefit that's worthy of giving them that, then fine. Why are we giving that away? And I wonder, has anyone carefully read through this and looked at the way it amends footnotes? I don't know. I would suggest that tabling it and having a more inclusive conversation that can give us a more holistic kind of set of amendments that addresses the whole city rather than what seems like addressing developer needs alone might be merited here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak, please come to the podium. State your name, Katie, and your address.
Thanks. Katie Cohen, 259 Linwood Street. Wasn't planning to speak today, but having read through the documents and what is at issue for me and what I think is that a yes vote for these zoning changes is giving up your all's power to see these developers come forward and when they ask for these variances or a special permit. And, I want you all to have your full power. Many of you I've worked for. I've gotten up early on Saturday mornings and called many people for you, and that's because I believe in what the people sitting down here, even those I haven't worked for, believe in for this city and are going to fight for this city. So that's why I want you, the city councilors, to have the full extent of your power to at least hear from the developers directly, or maybe negotiate with them some kind of agreement for their special permit. And I think what really made my blood boil, if any of you heard that interview with Mike Procopio, where he said, the project that had an accident on it, right? He brags about how he didn't have to go through any special permitting process, like in other cities where if you want to build 10 stories, you have to get a special permitting process. So I think what made my blood boil was that he was bragging he didn't have to get a special permit, and then he was able, he hired people who were the reason why a man's life was ruined through the accident. And the last thing I say is that, I know a change from 5 stories to 8 stories, or reducing the setback from 200 feet to 100 feet from the coastline isn't much. Those are all little bits and pieces, and whatever you decide today won't really change the direction of development down there. There's many more decisions to make, but it's these kinds of every time, you give away a little bit more of your power or authority over it, that catches my eye, I guess, and why I felt compelled to speak. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, that part of the area is closed. What's the wish of the council? Councilor LaPierre.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I would make a motion to approve this waterfront zoning change, subject to the 5 changes that we can have Clerk Rowe read into the record if I get a second on my motion.
Second.
5 changes on number 1. Motion to amend Section 3 of the proposed zone amendments to read as follows. Section 3, Section 4 entitled Use Regulations is hereby amended by replacing footnotes 7, 8, 14 with amended footnotes 7, 8, and 14 below as follows. Number 7, multifamily residential high-rise is permitted in WF1, WF1A, WF3, WF4, WS, and SHCO districts, and permitted with less than 300 residential units, so as long as 50% of the first floor frontage of all buildings on the primary streets, including Route 1A Linway, are dedicated to retail and/or permitted business uses. Any project with more than 300 residential units in WF1, WF1A, WF3, WF4, WS, and SHCO districts, or any project within the W2 district shall not be required to have any percentage of retail uses on any floor of the building. Nothing in this footnote shall prohibit a multifamily high-rise from also having retail and/or permitted business uses on floors above the first floor. Number 8, deleted. Number 14, no single retail shall consist of more than 25,000 square feet in the WF1, WF1A, WF2, WF3, WF4, WS, and SHCO districts. Number 2, motion to amend Section 5 classification of uses to read as follows. 5.1.8 multifamily high-rise. A residential apartment building that has height in excess of 5 stories or 60 feet except for the WF1A, WF2, WF3, WF4 districts, where the minimum height shall be 3 stories or 36 feet. Number 3, motion to amend Section 9 by adding footnote number 23 from the proposed zone ordinance to read as follows. Section 9. Section 8 entitled Table of Dimensional Requirements is hereby amended by replacing zoning district row WF1 minimum height feet and stories to 5 stories and 60 feet. Number 23, a building less than 5 stories shall be permitted in the WF district with a special permit from the Linz City Council. Number 4, motion to amend the City of Lynn ordinances by adding a new section 12.1.3 to read as follows. A building less than 5 stories shall be permitted in the WF1 district with a special permit from the Linz City Council. And number 5, motion to delete from the proposed zoning amendment Section 10 relating to the storage facilities, which stated, Section 5 entitled Classification of Uses is hereby amended by adding the following use and by designing this use as permitted in the WF1, WF1A, WF2, WF3, WS, SHCO districts by the insertion of a SP in Section 4 of the ordinance entitled Table of Use Regulations. Storage facility, a facility where individual portions of the space are rented to consumers for the temporary storage of business or personal items. And that's it.
Motion made, Counsel Lapierre.
Just thank you, Clerk Rowe. I also want to make mention that these were the recommended changes that were proposed by the Lynn Planning Board. So we're taking what they recommend and putting it into this, this adoption.
Motion made,
Second.
seconded, discussion, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Stabbit absent. Counsel Walsh absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is not a public hearing, but a hearing, correct?
This is just, that was the end of the public hearings. Now we move on to the hearing for an order that $2.5 million is appropriated to pay costs of purchasing heavy equipment for the fire department and the Department of Public Works, consisting of 2 fire pumpers, 2 front-end loaders, 2 snowplow trucks, and 1 asphalt pothole filler, 1 bucket truck, and/or other similar pieces of heavy truck equipment, all with a useful lifespan of in excess of 10 years, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the city treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, Section 7-1, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the city, therefore, that any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, lest any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of the costs approved by this order in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount, and that the mayor is authorized to apply for, accept, and expend any and all rebates, grants, or other funds that may be available to the city to pay costs for this project, provided that the amount of any borrowing undertaken pursuant to this order shall be reduced by the amount of any rebates, grants, or other funds received by the city or account on this project. Further ordered, that the treasurer is authorized to file an application with the appropriate officials of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to qualify under MGL Chapter 44A any and all bonds or notes of the city to be issued pursuant to this order, and to provide such information and execute such documents as such officials of the Commonwealth may require.
So the wish of the council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, discussion, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Stabbit absent. Counsel Walsh absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes.
Public hearings to be set down.
We have no public hearings to set down.
Committee reports, Ways and Means, Councilor Net.
Yes, Mr. President, there was all unanimously voted by the committee to approve and make a motion to accept.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Will the clerk please read?
The first order was granted with stipulations. Order that the city comptroller be and is hereby authorized to take the following action. Establish one account under Section Chapter 44, Section 53A, for the purposes of accepting the following funding for the payroll and expenses associated with the hiring of planning services staff for the city of Lynn. This account will be used at the mayor's discretion for the aforementioned purposes only, and can be closed once all funds are utilized for this given purpose. EDIC Lynn, $225,000 gift in 3 annual installments. Mass Development, $100,000 grant in 3 annual installments. Eastern Bank Foundation, $100,000 one-time gift. Jaron Dulles Foundation, $150,000 gift in 3 annual installments. And the Bar Foundation, $100,000 in grant in 3 annual installments. The following stipulations will apply. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the city accepts these gifts upon the following conditions. The Lynn City Council shall perform the mayoral appointments of principal planner and associate planner pursuant to Section 3-9 of the Lynn City Charter. The final contract with financial benefits shall be approved by the city council at a time of confirmation of the consultants. The job description for the principal planner, bullet number 6, shall read, serving and contract/consultant for external parties on the development process in Lynn, along with the executive director of the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation, the executive director of the Department of Community Development, the chief of Inspectional Services Department, and the executive director of the Lynn Housing Authority.
Motion made, seconded, discussion, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Calucci?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Staben absent, Counsel Walsh absent, Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes. We have financial orders laid over from November 26th.
Please read those.
Transfer the sum of $271,153.33 from the account of Lynn Police payroll to the account of Lynn Police expense to fund additional expenses related to the additional manpower and upgrade of office equipment. Transfer the sum of $20,000 from the account of Lynn Police payroll to the account of Stat PSIOD expense to fund additional statutory public safety injured on duty medical expense fund under Chapter 41, Section 111F for FY20. Ordered that the City of Lynn accept and adopt a special purpose stabilization fund for golf course capital expenses under Chapter 40, Section 5B, and dedicate 65% of the annual golf course rental payments to the Gannon Golf Course Stabilization Fund. This account shall remain in Fund 028, and capital expenses may be spent from this account accordingly pertaining to the contents and upkeep of the city-owned golf course. The current lease agreement effective 1/1/2020 through 12/31/2024 states that 65% of the lease receipts are to be retained in the stabilization account, and 35% will be considered general fund receipts.
So it was a unanimous vote of the committee, correct?
Yes, it was.
Motion made.
Second.
Roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Calucci?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Staben absent, Counsel Walsh absent, Counsel Seer?
Yes. Licensing, Counselor Field.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was a unanimous vote by the committee. Motion to approve.
Second.
Unanimous vote, seconded, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Calucci?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Staben absent, Counsel Walsh absent, Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes.
Any old business? Any new business?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made.
Second.